our fears, our dreams, our aspirations, and who speak to our souls and our consciences. When they compose songs, poems, plays about Agenda 2063, we will know indeed that our renaissance has started. Agenda 2063 belongs to the youth, whose energy, daring, and creativity force us to question the conventional truths about the continent and who challenge us to think in different ways of tackling today's challenges. They are our future and therefore must participate in working with us to shape that future today. Agenda 2063 belongs to women and girls whose resilience and caring, their strength in the face of adversity, their commitment to creating a better life for all their children, their communities should inspire us all. Without their full participation, our transformation, the rebirth of our civilization, will be less inclusive, less secure, less human, and much less transformative. Excellencies, Agenda 2063 belongs to our private sector, entrepreneurs and farmers, large and small, without whom we cannot create jobs, nor can we industrialize, trade, or beneficiate. Agenda 2063 belongs to the children of Africa, who have every right to demand their rights to education, to safety, to good nutrition, to reach their full potential, and to be children. Indeed, Agenda 2063 belongs to all African citizens, men and women, young and old, rural and urban, as well as our diaspora. Excellencies, as we therefore reflect on last year and the year ahead of us, we must strengthen the initiatives aimed at the different sectors I've mentioned. Much of 2015's focus on young people was on the many who perished whilst crossing the Sahel and Mediterranean Sea in search for a better life, or the few lured by extremists. And yet, across the length and breadth of the continent, and against great odds, young entrepreneurs and innovators are doing extraordinary things in their communities, universities, civil society, and in business, tackling Africa's social problems in innovative ways with just a little bit of support and encouragement. Today, we will once again have the intergenerational youth dialogue, with this year's focus on how we can reap the demographic dividend through the skilling and economic empowerment of young people. At the Mekele retreat that just concluded, the report on critical skills on Agenda 2063 highlighted the huge skills gap in virtually every high level: technical, engineering, vocational, and research skills. We require a massive and concerted continental intervention. That is why all along we have been talking about a skills revolution. Excellencies, during the celebration of Africa Youth Day in December last year, our young people from across the continent gathered to discuss the formation of AU clubs in universities so that they can be informed about developments in the continent, make their inputs, and participate in the implementation of the priorities of Agenda 2063. The Baida Ministerial Retreat of the Executive Council in January 2014 identified the need for an African economic dialogue platform to allow for a strategic discussion between government, business, and academics on the major tasks that the continent must tackle together. We are pleased to announce that the inaugural chapter of this platform will be held in Mauritius this year, 2016, from 14 to 15 April. Excellencies, there are a number of matters that require discussion with our private sector, ranging from industrialization and agriculture to infrastructure development, to the free movement of goods, people and services, and the continental free trade area. The private sector and the university sector also need to advise on how we will fill the massive skills gap, so critical to the implementation of our first 10-year plan. Last but not least, the women and gender movement have also just concluded their pre-summit gender meetings, reviewing progress during 2015 as the year of women's empowerment across the length and breadth of our continent. Our countries focused on women's land rights, on equal pay for equal work, the rights of informal traders, access for women farmers to technology, capital, inputs, and the right to education and health. We continue to push ahead with such programs as the campaign for the reduction of maternal mortality in Africa and other health programs. We also focus on issues of water, sanitation, and affordable and clean energy. And we focus on these as key to women's and community empowerment. Excellencies, the holding of the first Girls Summit in Lusaka, Zambia last year signaled our commitment to ensure that our girls and boys enjoy their childhood, are given opportunities to complete their education so that they can become productive citizens with choices. Since we introduced the first Africa Gender Scorecard at Summit last year, countries have taken steps to do better on the indices measured. The 2016 Gender Scorecard will focus on indicators relating to the theme of human rights for this year, and we are in the process of developing these. In the more than 10 elections held last year, only Ethiopia and Sudan managed to increase the percentage of women in parliamentary sufficient to make it into the group of countries with more than 30% women in parliament. We must do better in the 2016 elections. Last year was also the 25th anniversary of the Charter on the Rights of the Child, an important milestone to reaching our objectives in Agenda 2063 to put our children first. Excellencies, we worked hard last year to ensure that the world arrived at a global deal that takes account of the devastating impact of climate change on our continent. Whilst we now have a binding agreement, it still falls short of the target needed to reverse climate change. Africa has not been resting on its laurels. From initiatives such as the Great Green Wall to the Sahara Sahel, the relentless work of the Save Lake Chad and now Lake Niger, the launch of the Africa Renewable Energy Initiatives, and the commitment to climate-smart agriculture. This also includes our own homegrown Africa Risk Capacity Agency, which provides capacity monitoring and insurance against natural disasters. Let me call once again on more countries to join these very successful African initiatives. It is therefore not surprising that UNEP report in 2015 noted from oil tax levies in Algeria and forest rehabilitation in Burkina to biotrade in Namibia and organic exports in Uganda, Africa's green economy transition is already underway and reaping sustainable dividends across the continent. The list of successful examples of green investments in Africa is far greater than what is generally imagined. The potential is enormous, close quotes. The climate deal and the green economy are important for us in the context of domestic investments and global pledges made to support mitigation and adaptation, in particular renewable energy in Africa. We must continue bringing about greater harmonization in our frameworks to renewable energy, coupled with investments in capacity building and research in renewables, so that we are able to access the resources and funds, manufacture, build the infrastructure, and develop African companies that can drive the anticipated boom in renewables. It also requires that we push ahead on the issue of the next and largest phase of the Grand Inga project, so that this dream is realized in our lifetime. In a similar vein, across the continent, countries and regions are determined to connect their national territories and to connect their neighborhoods, regions, and continent. Our ambitious dream of connecting all African capitals and commercial centers through high-speed rail remains alive, and we will continue to work with our partners and with the regional economic communities, member states, to ensure that we record progress each year. Excellencies, the resilience of the people and governments of Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and the continent and global solidarity have put an end to the Ebola epidemic in that region. We must continue to accompany the countries en route to full social and economic recovery. We must all invest in building strong and resilient public health systems and develop continental capacity to respond to any future threats through the African Center for Disease Control. The Mekelle retreat emphasized the importance of effective and accountable institutions at continental, regional, and national levels, as it discussed the capacities for implementing Agenda 2063 and improving the working methods of the Union. Cheers. Institutions and staff by personnel, and particularly those in our public services and institutions, should have the necessary skills and qualifications, but also be committed to serve the people, be diligent and hardworking. Our public servants across the continent, teachers, immigration officers, nurses, doctors, tax collectors, social workers, and others in the frontline offices should be part of our development armies, as we were told by the Minister of Ethiopia, that Ethiopia has development armies, to ensure that the continent's dream of rising living standards for the all African people is being realized. We are but 4 years away from our target year to silence the guns and end the suffering of women, men, and children in the few countries still plagued by conflict and in the regions facing the threats of terrorism and violent extremism. We must not be deterred from our goal of bringing about peace, so that the peoples of Mali, South Sudan, Darfur, Libya, Somalia, Niger, Nigeria, and many others can live in peace and harmony and can join the march towards the Africa we want. Excellencies, we must also not relent on our efforts to ensure that the peoples of Western Sahara and other territories still denied the right to self-determination are able to determine their own future. The issue of Western Sahara has been handled by the UN, and we really need to push the UN to ensure that it does everything that should be done to move the process of Western Sahara forward. It is really not acceptable that for so long, nothing has happened in that issue. Last but not least, there are a number of developments that require specific attention, lest it derail our march towards transforming our continent. These include the collapse of the commodity prices, slowing global demand, and droughts, and other extreme weather related to the El Nino effect, such as the floods we have seen in Western Sahara, Zambia, and Mozambique. We must ensure that we are making and ensure that the remedies are not worse than what we seek to cure. We look forward to the roundtable of finance ministers and ministers of planning and agriculture planned for April this year to advise on a common response to these matters. We indeed have an ambitious program before this summit and for 2016. Let me therefore remind us of the words of Kwame Nkrumah when he said, "The task ahead is indeed great, and heavy is the responsibility. And yet it is a noble and glorious challenge, a challenge which calls for the courage to dream, to believe, and to dare. The courage to do, to envision, and to fight. The courage to work, and the courage to achieve the highest and the fullest greatness. Dare we ask for more in life?" I thank you.